77 counties in Oklahoma. I can put reports in them in 66 counties.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was?
I'd say it was a person or somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Welcome back to Squatch Ranger Files, Episode 16. It's been a while since I've been on here, guys. And I want to say that I had a blast at the Honubby Bigfoot Festival and Conference. Go ahead and check out my latest Squatch Ranger Files episode if you haven't already. It's called Bigfoot Tracks Found in Honubby, Oklahoma. Go ahead and check it out and give it a like on my YouTube channel, Squatch Ranger. Also, you can become a patron. Go to www.patreon.com/SquatchRanger. I could really use your help. New field equipment is always a bonus when bringing my audience a peek into my latest adventure. I also collect Bigfoot reports from witnesses all over the state of Oklahoma and beyond. A traveling budget to reach these witnesses would be a helpful tool for me to continue my journey. Please join my search. Go ahead and check me out on patreon.com. Okay, it's now time to start Squatch Ranger Files, Episode 16. Number 1. Fisherman spots juvenile Bigfoot behind tree. 1988. Southwest District of Oklahoma, in Canadian County. Class A daytime sighting. First encounter. My first sighting took place in early September of 1988, northeast of Reno, Oklahoma, while fishing at a flood control reservoir fed by Uncle John's Creek, which is fed from the North Canadian River. Without any doubt, my life has changed from this encounter. Prior to this sighting, I was like many baby boomers who only knew of Bigfoot from movies and the few reports that made national news, such as the Patterson-Gimlin film, Legend of Boggy Creek, and the Yeti of the Himalayas. By 1988, several news reports of hoaxing these stories ended any thoughts I ever had that Sasquatch might be a reality, and also any ideas that my own local childhood monster, the El Reno Chicken Man, could be a fact-based report. Basically, it got uploaded to the myth depth of my brain, along with the Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, and Mothman. So now you're in my head, seeing Bigfoot as I did 30 years ago. The sighting. My best fishing partner, let's call him Jake to protect his privacy, got off work at 5 p.m. and we met up for some bass fishing. I was lucky to have grown up in the country. I knew most of the landowners and farmers whose property these honey holes were located. It was slightly cloudy, muggy, and in the 80s that day. Low winds from the southwest. Good fishing day. Jake was running the trolling motor on my two-man bass boat and had his chair swiveled to the outer channel area, fishing deep water, crankbaits, while I flipped jigs into the brush running along the bank. Moving along very slowly, something caught my eye on the bank along the side of a cottonwood tree, about 12 to 13 feet from the water line. As we rounded a small willow tree, I saw it again to the right side of the cottonwood. Just a quick glimpse of brownish-red hair. Squirrel. Yup, it's a squirrel hiding from me. As we creeped along slowly to the right, this thing moved more to the left of the tree. But my next glance upward to watch the squirrel turned out to be a hairy kneecap. The further we moved along, the more I saw of the creature. It was running out of tree to hide behind. yet seemed entranced and fixated on watching me. I'll describe what I witnessed now. It's not too hard of a thing to do when you replay something in your head over and over daily for 30 years. The body. Its entire left side was exposed to me as it crouched down behind the tree. Both hands were on the tree trunk. The first thing I noticed was the slender tight muscle running throughout the entire leg. Short hair, especially on kneecaps and brow ridge. Longer, straggly hair from wrist to elbow, as well as from the back of the knee to the ankle, 4 to 5 inches compared to the 1 to 2 inches that covered most of its body. Dark skin on less hairy body areas. Long legs and very long arms. Slender build. Would even say skinny except for the broad muscular chest and thick shoulder muscles. I don't recall an odor coming from this thing, but I'm 100% certain it was male, not having breasts of large size and having a small, danglish reddish-colored penis, about an inch long, told me it was male. The head and face. The head was proportionate to the body size. It had a slight cone shape and a very pronounced brow ridge. The skin was dark like the body, where hair wasn't thick. The round eyes were brownish and had little hair surrounding them. The nose was not ape-like, but more like the button nose at the end of a bear's snout. The mouth had more lip structure than an ape. I see why some folks have reported human-like features. The lips, in my opinion, give it that look. The rest is purely primate, but not like any I've ever seen. Hair was slightly longer, falling from the cheeks and chin, as was the hairline in the back of the head. The stare-off. My mental state at the time was very calm. I was not afraid and almost euphoric at the wonderful event that was happening. I've always had a special way with animals. Many folks have told me their dog or cat, horse or bird, usually doesn't like new people. Not sure why they like me most of the time, but I'm happy they do. With this creature, it was obvious we had a super curiosity stare-off going on, and I've always thought that if I could have had more time, it might have moved into some form of communication. Still, I never doubted for a second that I was looking at an animal, smart with a curious look. I pretended to keep fishing while we stared at each other. It seemed like longer, but in reality was probably around 30 seconds. The departure. After my head screwed back on from the shock of what I was looking at, I then whispered to Jake, "Turn around. We got us a fishing buddy." I remember he smiled and swiveled around quickly in his chair, looking for whatever it was I had seen. When he made visual contact with this thing, Jake shrieked, "What the is that?" This thing's eyes opened up twice as big, and in one movement sprang up to its feet and was running on 2 legs, across an opening away from us. Now I could see it was about 6'2" and had a skinny waist, as it ran bipedally. Amazingly fast, by the way. It came to a big pile of deadwood about 4 foot high. It jumped this with 0 effort and landed on all 4s. That's when it shifted into high gear and was gone through the tree line in seconds. Conclusions. I've always figured that it was young, probably teen, caught between being spotted, if it moved from its close proximity to us, and the mesmerizing effects of curiosity. Having had a brief sighting of an adult much later in life, and from other sources, I don't see our local Bigfoot looking like Patty from the late 60s film. I see a powerful yet slender primate-type animal that has the night vision and smarts to keep humans from seeing it often, and/or capturing it. Follow up N.O. N.C.R.P investigators report. By an N.C.R.P investigator. This is my first encounter with a river ape, or Bigfoot as it's better known. I mainly wrote this for the Squatch Ranger, as his YouTube show mainly uses written accounts. Since 1988, and my first sighting, I have been researching and investigating these creatures, which I truly believe exist throughout most parts of the US and Canada. We have created the N.C.R.P, North Canadian River Project. Our close contact with several other researchers and groups, along with field research we have done, is hopefully bringing the truth of these wonderful creatures to light. Number 2. Heavy footsteps near barn of famous 1970s Chicken Man. 2010. Southwest District of Oklahoma, in Canadian County. Class B, heavy footsteps. It all happened one night, back in mid-March of 2010, in Canadian County. My dad had just passed away, and I moved back in with my uncle. I stayed out in his barn that he had in the backyard. My other cousin was staying with my uncle and living in my old bedroom. So it was one night, after I'd been there for a couple of weeks. I just started working at Gilmore's Pub as a cook. I got off work that night and went to the barn to relax, have a few beers, and watch some TV. I made part of his barn into a bedroom. I had a bed and a TV and a heater in there. It was still pretty cool at night, so I turned on the heater and the TV and cracked open a beer. I had been laying there for about an hour or two when I heard footsteps coming towards the back of the barn where I had stayed at. There was a window by my bed. I had an old army blanket tacked up over so no one could see in. Let me also say that at this time, my neighbor to the south of me, who kept getting broke into, was having trouble with thieves, so I kept a pump 12 gauge loaded close by. I'd seen these guys drive over the bridge a few nights before this, and they were headed towards the storage units down the road. So my uncle called the sheriff to keep them patrolling the area. So we had been on the edge thinking thieves were going to break in around my uncle's house. So I felt a presence nearby and heard footsteps, so I grabbed the shotgun and proceeded to head towards the door. I opened the door quietly, and when running out towards the back of the barn, nothing was there. So I went back in and thought to myself, what the hell is going on? I just didn't hear anything. So I went to lay back down and get back to the movie I was watching. And the footsteps and the presence was back again. So I thought to myself, clearly, whatever this was, person or whatever, knows I have a gun. So I went back out, ran out to the back of the shed, and this time I made a complete circle around it, and there was no one or anything around. So I went back in and thought, man, I'm going crazy. What the hell is making this noise? So this time, I go to just sit in my bed with the gun and wait, and the noise happened, and also it felt like someone was out there, so this time I'm pissed off. And I remember I wasn't a believer in Bigfoot at the time, so I go running out there screaming and cussing, I got a gun and I'll blow your head off, and made another complete circle around the place, and still there was no one or anything around that I could see. So I finally go back in and tell myself whatever is out there knows for sure I have a gun, and it can't be that stupid to come back. And after that, it just stopped. I went to bed finally, a few hours later, and was still on edge. Woke up the next morning and told my uncle about the situation, and he just laughed. He said, well, if something was there, you must have scared it off with the screaming and cussing. So now it makes me think it was a Squatch. Could have been a Juvenile because of the playfulness with messing with me like that. And my uncle throws old food and scraps over his fence line, and also grease for the wildlife to feed on it at least every 2 days. I also don't want to leave out that 50 feet from where this shed is where the chicken coops had been destroyed by the Chicken Man in the 1970s. Number 3. Woman sees Bigfoot cross road near Ouachita. 2014. Southwest District of Oklahoma. N.C.R.P. Class A daytime sighting. About 4 years ago or so, at this location near Hog Creek at Ouachita, Oklahoma, on Highway 281 west of Anadarko, a Sasquatch sighting occurred just west of Kiowa Road. The woman that lived at this homestead north of the highway said that just after sundown, but still light, her dogs started acting very scared and were barking and growling non-stop at something west of her house. That's when she saw it, walking south through the pasture about 75 yards from her home. It was headed south. She said it was very tall and had long reddish-black stringy hair hanging down off its arms, and it was covered in shorter hair on the rest of its body. She said it stunk really bad, like rotten garbage and dead animals. She said it was walking fast, and it just stepped over the fence like it was no trouble at all, and with several steps, it was across the highway, headed down into the tribal land, a wooded canyon, and flood control reservoir area on a creek. The witness said it scared her so badly she couldn't live there anymore, and she left that night. And she even had her whole house moved out of there. The Hog Creek area has had many sightings, and people have heard it screaming at night a lot. People in that area don't go outside at night because of it. The Ouachita River is just north of this location.